Thank you, Robert. This was actually Robert's writing and producing debut, am I right? Yeah, no, Robert himself is an actor, producer, director, and writer, and Tankman has won multiple awards, but also faced multiple troubles, and he's going to tell us about it. So, Robert, welcome on stage. And of course, another person I'm welcoming on stage is our amazing Lee Schoolland. I believe, Lee, these events you were already in the States. But for 26 years, she lived in Maoist China, and now she travels there and teaches people Austrian economics. Like, they can shoot their offices, but they cannot shut down people. So they are still meeting off social media. And she travels to China a lot. So we all know Lee. I think we kind of need to take a few breaths after the screening. Robert, I wanted to ask about this debut. Like, this is a powerful subject, and also it needs to be talked about more, especially that it's shut down so much. So can you tell us why you went there, and also what troubles you faced? Because I understand you faced troubles not only in Asia, but also in the States.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's been an interesting process, and I hadn't really thought that I thought I wouldn't encounter any real issues with it, but it started quite early. Even in the casting process, a number of actors that I was auditioning, I pretty much didn't get any of my first picks, because as they found out what the subject matter was, they'd say either, I'm from China, and I'm maybe going back someday, or I have family in China, and I'm concerned about their well-being, or I just would like to go to China someday, and I think this might preclude that from happening. And yeah, I didn't expect, I should have, but I wasn't smart enough to have expected that would have been a possibility. And then, you know, we did the film, and I got some amazing people to work on it for much less than their day rates, because they just appreciated the subject matter. And then when we released it, we had a lot of good fortune with a number of smaller and mid-tier film festivals, which is about what I would have hoped for. I had submitted this to every Asian American film festival, and to some in China, and in Hong Kong. And I only got selected by 2 of them. One was in Hong Kong, and I did get to screen that in 2019 during the protests, which was amazing. And then the other was the only American Asian film festival that accepted it was in Houston. I was like, Texas, of course, one of the more independent of our states. But I thought, well, you know, it's not a perfect film. You know, it was my first foray behind the camera. And so, you know, yeah, it's a Chinese topic, it's all Chinese cast, but maybe it wasn't good enough for a lot of these Asian film festivals. Well, at the same time, some friends of mine made a film called Empty Skies, and it deals with the Great Leap Forward. And because they were grad students, their film was shortlisted for an Academy Award. So that means they were one of the top 10 films considered by the Academy as a student film. They got accepted to no Asian American film festivals. Now, at that point I said, this is not about the quality of the film that these projects are being rejected. It is about the content. It is about the subject matter that's being that's dealt with in the films, and that the Chinese government has such a reach or perceived reach that these even Asian American film festivals are not willing to wrestle with this content. There's a lot more. I could tell you a million stories, but I've told you enough. Go ahead.
I think everything we talk about here is such a huge question and such a huge story. This just shows that this is the present, the fact that it's practically censored now. Lee, we talked before about 1989 and the civil movement, because the world only has a few glimpses and there's a lot of misinformation about it. So can you tell us more about how it evolved, how it got to this moment, what the aftermath was, and how it stopped being so much a student movement?
Well, that's a big
Yes,
question.
I know.
I would like to start first with the tank man as a singular, but for us, we don't want to think tank man is just one man, because the people who are in the tank, we also call them the tank man, because your film stopped early, and later this young man with white shirt climbed up to the tank and then knocked and asked to have a conversation. So the people in the tank came out from two different windows. They came out and talked to him. We don't know what they talk about it, but from the hand gesture, we knew the people in the tank told the white shirt guy, just leave. But what we look at it is those people, they did not follow the order of their commander, just shoot and go. They, in your film, it also show they try to get around. So they are hero too, to us. And we also try to track down, I mean, the Chinese, we try to track down who exactly this white shirt guy, because later on, other people from the sidewalk rush over there and push him out of the center of the street to the sidewalk and had some conversation with him. So obviously, a lot of people knew who, saw his face and talked with him, but why there's no information about him? That's a big question, because the Chinese government had so much pressure on all the people there, and who were the soldier in the tank is obviously everybody should know, because it's a military thing, but they disappeared as well. We don't know, but we can imagine what happened to them too, if they get to survive or not shot at. How I knew the pressure aftermath you asked, in your film there's a very brief moment. This guy was on the platform of this tricycle, and with the blood, and one leg is gone. I knew him personally. He lives in San Francisco. He told me, he said with him, his colleagues also there, both of them got run over by the tank and lost the legs. And just happened the CNBC or whatever news agent had the footage, so it was evident. But the government came to them and said, you have to say you have you had an accident with a bus. You cannot say you got injured on Tiananmen Square. And the lady, for her survival and her family's sake and everything, she agreed. So until today, she said, yes, I was hit by the bus, not in Tiananmen Square. But Fang Zheng, this guy, refused to say that. And he was in prison and house arrest until 2008, when the Olympic happened. And China wanted to show their good image internationally. They let him out of China. So he now lives in San Francisco and going around give talks about how he really lost his legs. And so I'm sure the people who knew about this tank man, both inside the tank, outside the tank, nobody dared to say anything. And for many obvious reasons. So I'm not surprised you're facing all the difficulties getting your film accepted, because June 4th, in China we call 6-4. 6 and 4 are forbidden words. Even the gesture, this is a 6 in Chinese and this is 4. Even you doing hand gestures like this is forbidden. And most of Chinese, almost 100% of Chinese in young age, you ask them about it, nobody ever heard about it. So, yeah, because they have a lot to be afraid of.
So going back to this, this is such a powerful, powerful statement, and probably one of the bravest moments ever recorded, because if you knock there on the tank, it's like saying, hey, I am human, you are human, let's talk. And that was like this brief second of it. But then, of course, if they need to control it, they need to pretend that never happened. And but we know it did. And so how would you say what led up to this moment? Because it's so hard to kind of pierce the situations in China from an outside perspective. So something must have been boiling up to that.
Yeah, this whole thing started a month ahead of time. Actually, more than that. It was, there's two perspectives I want to touch. One is in May, there's a riot in Tibet. And the government just sent the troops to crack it down and shoot people. And famously known, Deng Xiaoping was playing bridge at the People's Hall, and then got the report the soldiers was killing Tibetans, bloodshed. And Deng Xiaoping just say, get lost, and I'm playing bridge. So everybody knew that. He didn't even care. He didn't care about people's life. He just ordered the military to shoot. And then a couple of weeks later, was in Beijing, and Hu Yaobang died. He was considered to be a mild communist leader, and not very harsh. And so a lot of people had hope on him, and he passed away. And they were sad about seeing him gone, because compared to Deng Xiaoping and others, he's much better. So the student went to Tiananmen Square because he's a national symbol and a national hero. So they put the wreath at the pillar of the memorial to memorialize him. It's just very naive activity to memorize Hu Yaobang, and also to express their unhappiness with Deng Xiaoping. And so they're throwing little bottles on the street, and Xiaoping puns with little bottle in Chinese. So they were throwing little bottles on the street, and not very harmful, but the Chinese government on May 20th had the People's Daily front page top headline saying there's a riot and anti-government riot. And so they label the students are lawbreakers. That angered all the students. Suddenly they became criminals. Their future will be either, always on the record, or you ever have crime, and, this and that. So they were scared and furious. And they say, no, we're not. We did this because we want a better of a country, a more transparency and more kind leaders. So now you label us lawbreakers and criminals. we don't accept this, please change it. So they demand that, so the students went on to the street demonstrating. That's the starting of the demonstration. Before that, those students at the time, 1989, still the generation still read and think. And their professors are also thinkers. And after a long time, the Cultural Revolution and the Mao era, people were not allowed to think and not allowed to read. And suddenly they were allowed to read and think. They start really thinking deeply. And just 2 years before that, there was a documentary film called Riverology, E-L-E-G-Y, Riverology. It was a 6 parts of a documentary. You can find on YouTube, but the quality is not very good because the original footage is still in China. I tried really hard to get it, but a lot of fear for a lot of reasons we couldn't get it out. But you can still watch that. That really was the awakening, very, very important film in China. It's also, interestingly, broadcast on the national television station. So that was a gesture of difference when they didn't allow anybody to say anything, and suddenly they allowed this kind of things, questioning and criticizing Chinese mentality, Chinese way of thinking, Chinese philosophy. Let me just give a little bit information about this film. Was American world champion rafters want to go to raft in Yellow River. And Chinese government said, no, we won't allow foreigners to raft in our mother river. Yellow River considered to be mother river. They should be only Chinese rafters. So the Chinese rafters, without preparation, went in the river and rafted, and both of them died. They're national champions, and the people were very shocked at why they died. And they said, is it legit to say no foreigners can raft in Chinese river? And this is wrong way of thinking. And because the stupid ideology, our country is ours, our river is ours, our land is ours. And when can we look over beyond our so-called 5,000-year culture and the yellow river, yellow earth, yellow sea, and look into the blue, they call US and European blue, then if we want to advance, if we want to change, we have to look beyond the yellow. So it stirred up so much thinking and discussion. That's led to the student want to have a more transparent government. And that's kind of thinking, because it's from the professors and transformed to the students. So their intention is not down with the communists. They just want better communists. And then they say, if we love you so much, we're trying to help you get better, you label us criminals. We don't accept this. And there's, inside the Chinese government, there are several different sectors. Some said, well, just tell the student, we know you love our country, you have a good intention, just go back to campus and keep your study. That will be no problem for any part. But Deng Xiaoping didn't want that. He want to just say this, you are dare to come out to say anything and do anything against the government, you're condemned. I don't care if I kill all of you. So his side won. And so they ordered the tank. First troop went into Beijing because they're all called from China has 7 different, what they're called, the military units. They called all of them from China and gathered to Beijing during that time. It was taking about 20 days in the time to get of them. So they already prepared to kill all the students. So the first troop went into Beijing. Their cannon was up. They shot. In your film, there's shots, but they were above the people's heads. And they said, because they saw the student, no, I'm not going to shoot these people. So they got kicked out. The second troop came in. The more directly listened to the party. They came in, and they started to lower their guns and start to shoot at the people. But the tank men, that troop, behind that one, it was about 27 or something tanks behind. There's a huge line. They didn't want to advance and just run over this guy. But later ones, they just run over whoever. Yeah, I have a lot of relatives on the square at the time, and they all told me the personal stories.
So it's a lot of times, it's like you really protest when you had hope. You had hope for more transparency. You had hope for more freedom, more opportunities, whatever it might look like, because you may not even fully know how that might look like if you live in China, and then that hope gets taken away, and you protest when the hope gets taken away. Like, I understand this is who Deng was for them. And I have a question, maybe it's a question to both of you, and I don't know if anyone from the audience ever encountered this narrative. I think when I last heard it, maybe it was 10 years ago, there are a lot of lies about Tiananmen Square out there, even in the, or maybe especially in the, broadly speaking, free market movement, because people who don't know the insides of China sometimes associate Deng with so-called free market reforms, if we can call that way. Some elements of free trade that help, at least on the surface, elevate China. Like, that's what people are seeing. And we had this, or maybe one person throwing that comments once, that these students wanted more communism, and if the revolt was not shut down, China would still be communist. So what do you say to these people? How do we even talk? Because I think we should.
Yeah, that's well. There's a lot there, and it is a complex question, and it's not cut and dry. I mean, obviously, Deng Xiaoping did a very terrible thing, rolling the tanks in and slaughtering all sorts of citizens and students and workers and grandmothers and children and everyone. Anybody who was in their path there. But he did create a tremendous number of reforms, and that he was largely behind and pushing. He was, he had, there were two camps that he would listen to. There were hardliners who wanted more and strict communism, and then there were reformers like Hu Yabang and others who were pushing more liberalization. And it was the greatest liberalization since 1949, since the Communist Party took over under Deng. So, there are those good aspects, but clearly this was not one of them. I did want to speak to a little bit, just because I know, there are some in libertarian circles who take a dim view of the protesters, and I don't believe anybody's, or there's no real good support to say that this was a libertarian revolution that they were doing. I think that would be incorrect to say that by any stretch. But there were students who were interested in greater reforms, who were interested in improving their lives along the lines of what markets could bring them. And so, I disagree with those who say they were pushing for greater communism. I think that's incorrect. That they weren't supporting the regime to stay as the same regime. They also weren't trying to topple over the regime. They were trying to improve their lot in life through
greater freedoms in certain areas and greater transparency, as Lee mentioned, and greater opportunity of an economic nature largely, because they did see that there was still a tremendous amount of corruption, as we see experienced in most of socialist and communist regimes, that those who are close to the organization, to the leadership, are able to benefit the most.
Yes, right after the Tiananmen massacre, and the world reacted differently. A lot of Eastern European countries opened their borders to any Chinese without visa, like Hungary. But US and European countries decided not to sanction China, and because they are hoping that free market will change China, and by helping China become member of the World Trade Organization. So even now, I don't have a very clear solution, I mean thoughts to see is good or bad, but that time, you know, as an Austrian follower of Austrian School of Economics, I thought maybe that will be the peaceful way to change China, change the regime. And until today, I still don't know if sanction is good or not, but that's a different issue. But that time, so China immediately shifted the attention, international attention from the massacre, and they, inside they cracked down so harshly on anybody participated, directly or indirectly, to the movement. Like my cousin, he didn't support the students, he was just on the sidewalk watching people passing by, and was very hot that day. And he saw the student, he was a professor in the university, and he saw the students was so hot, so he bought a lot of popsicle from an old lady on the sidewalk. He bought the whole thing and passed it on to all the students. And he was in big trouble, and he had to fly to China and came to the United States. That's all, he just did that little thing. But everybody was threatened, persecuted, imprisoned, or disappeared. And then the outside didn't even know, didn't even care. They only trying to help China to get into World Trade Organization. That's very unfortunate, but good thing, at least the 21 most wanted, 20 of them eventually left China. Some of them left right away, some of them was imprisoned, most of them were imprisoned, and then let go because they're too high profile. And they just say, you get out of China, you can't do anything in China, then you can do whatever outside of China. So most of them in US, Europe, and Taiwan. But in China, they still keep killing. At Tiananmen Square, they already killed thousands, but they still kept killing for another 10 years. And then China did join the World Trade Organization, did become kind of a state capitalism, and the GDP just soaring, and commercialism advanced. Now, the student leaders at that time, now they are really angry at the United States and Europe and saying, you fed the lion to be strong, powerful, and fat, and now they're coming to kill all of you. And, but their voice is not very loud. So that's the mentality among the Chinese and the student leader from that time. They were very angry at what the West did, trying to think so naively the free market can make a change.
So in the end, it's not the free market that changed CCP. CCP changed the free market to their favor.
Yes, and the government saw the benefit of becoming a capitalist, so they monopolized it. At the beginning, it was a true free market a little bit, and the small business people, entrepreneurs, but then the government sectors all joined in. The military opened the restaurant, the police station opened the karaoke bar, and government hospital opened a restaurant, whatever. And that was 1980s. In the 1990s, and the government saw this out of control, the free market out of control. Everybody's going after money, and so they start to take back power. So first they did was outlawed any government agencies, private businesses. And then the true private businesses, they trying to either condemn them or trying to kill them or forcefully ask them to give more than 50% of shares to the government. Gradually, until today, gradually killed almost all the private businesses and not helping small business at all because they are the biggest capitalists they're the property owner anyways and the business owners in China. So it's not a true capitalism, but like you said, yeah.
It's the CCP capitalism. So the most important word is the beginning of the first C. Okay, thank you so much, Lee and Robert, and we will open questions to the audience. We don't have time for this. Oh, okay, well, I misread the signs. Oh, too bad, but we have a break now, so I think we'll continue talking. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Agnes.